Kia ora, hello, and welcome to Anyway, the podcast where I unpack the chaos of reality TV. I am your host, Natalie McMurray, coming to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Because I was away for 2 weeks, I missed the last two episodes of The Valley. So today I'm going to be catching up on the last two episodes and then diving into the reunion part one. I don't know how I've never noticed this before, probably because I don't actually watch the screen when the opening credits are on. But Danny and Nia's car that they're washing has 4 under 4 on their number plate, which is really not the flex that they think it is. Anywho, in episode 17, we see Zach and Benji having a serious conversation about kids. Kids for Benji are a non-negotiable. But Zach, he isn't sure if he wants to have kids or not at this point. Not to be a complete asshole about the situation, but perhaps the reason that Zach isn't sure whether he wants children may have something to do with the people that he's surrounding himself with. Was that too harsh? I don't know. I'm not saying these people are all bad parents. Most of them seem to be great parents, but a lot of them, post-kids, now find themselves in broken relationships, which is tough to see. And it's not exactly inspiring for someone who's in an earlier phase of life, pre-marriage, pre-children. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Danny asked his kid where daddy's owie is, which made me want to fucking vomit all over myself. Apparently, Danny's procedure was an anniversary gift. To which I say to Nia, you need to get your money back, girl. Get a refund. Get a refund on the man and get a fucking refund on this life, okay? Michelle and Jesse sat down and signed their divorce papers. 2 years to get a divorce is crazy. I don't know what the normal timing is. I don't know if there is such thing as normal timing. But 2 years is way too long, which is evident by Michelle's tears. Although thinking about someone like Bethany Frankel, she was in the process of a divorce for 10 years. So in comparison, 2 really seems like nothing. What a goddamn nightmare scenario 10 years is. That Hoppy man was a fucking monster. He probably still is, let's be honest. I digress. I actually cried when I watched this scene with Michelle and Jesse. Mainly when Jesse was talking about their daughter, Isabella. And he said the thing about only having memory for your child. Which is so true, because I barely remember what happened in the 35 years before my daughter was born. Is that what Jesse meant? I don't know. Okay, I've just gone back and rewatched the scene and done some Googling. And no, that's not what he meant. The quote he was referring to is from the 2014 movie Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey. The quote is, once you're a parent, you're the ghost of your children's future. Pretty deep. And kind of the opposite of what I was talking about with my own memory loss. Ay, ay, ay. Anyway, Michelle, Lala, Schwartz, and Kiana go on some tiki bar boat situation. Schwartz offers to bartend, and not only does this offend the actual bartender, who questions whether she's doing a bad job, but also Schwartz is a fucking horrific bartender. I know he's owned a bar and Pa owned another bar, blah, blah, blah. But seriously, all I'm getting is flashbacks of when he tried to help Lisa out with a pride event at her bar pump. He had a fucking panic attack and ran out. I can't imagine he's improved much since then. On said tiki bar boat, Michelle tells them that she has a date with a comedian, Max Amini, I think I'm saying that right, who I've not heard of, but he looks pretty famous. Michelle knows how to get those celebrity hookups. I guess that's what selling $7+ million houses will get you. That and a pretty tidy commission. Schwartz brings up the god-awful Balls Voyage party. He talks about how Jesse let them know how Janet had mentioned a past traumatic experience and about how this had opened his eyes to why she was so sensitive about Danny's behavior. Schwartz talks about how Luke and Danny reacted poorly to Jesse's newfound empathy for Janet. To be clear, Luke and Danny are not men that believe women. They are not men that believe victims. Schwartz goes on to say that he had lunch with Kristen and told her about what Jesse had said and about how Luke and Danny acted, and inexplicably, it would seem Kristen is on the same side as them. What the fuck? Remember a few weeks ago when Kristen quoted Maya Angelou in a confessional, saying, when people show you who they are, aren't you supposed to believe them? And then called Janet an asshole. Well, here Kristen is showing us who she is. A person that apparently doesn't believe women either, as a person who has always been a fan of Kristen in the past. It is extremely disappointing to hear Kristen say, she never told me about that situation. Whether Janet told you or not is completely besides the point. Victims can stay silent about these things for years. Some will be silent their whole lives. And you know what? It's because of shit like this. They don't want the scrutiny of fucking assholes like this. Lala is correct. Kristen's hatred for Janet is clouding her judgment. Kristen is like Theoden, the king of Rohan in Lord of the Rings. And her hatred is the slimy little weaselly worm tongue in her ear controlling her mind. I'm not really sure why I thought of that reference. Apparently, Lord of the Rings lives rent-free in my head. We then see Kristen and Luke going to therapy. They discussed how difficult pregnancy was and now how difficult having a newborn is. Kristen explains that both of them feel as though they're on the back foot with each other. They move on to talking about getting married and how Luke basically changed his mind on that. Kristen wants to know how his feelings towards her have changed so dramatically. And Luke says, when we got engaged, I hadn't met pregnant Kristen yet. Diabolical. This is the mother of your child and fiance. Not to mention he's saying this in front of a third party, which I get is like what therapy is all about. But even the therapist was visibly disturbed by this notion. Luke has basically just told us that he hated pregnant Kristen, and now Kristen is talking about how Luke wants another baby. Like now, stat, today. What in the literal fucking hell is happening? Luke is constantly bitching that he doesn't get to drink fucking fish. Does he think that he'll be able to do these things more with 2 children? Why are men? Why are men? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills over here. Luckily for my mental health, the next scene is of Brittany and Cruz playing in a sensory room. What an adorable child. That sounded sarcastic, but I'm being serious. Later in the episode, we see Janet, Lala, Michelle, Zach, Jasmine, Brittany, and Lacey arrive at Chili's for lunch. Janet tells us that Chili's has 4,000 locations in America? Is that right? I'm assuming that's in the US. That's 76 restaurants per state, which is fucking insane if that is the case. The food and drinks start arriving, and while I'm sure most of this food would give me a bowel obstruction, I'm kind of jealous. I have to admit, it looks pretty good. Zach is sticking up for Danny, which I hate. He says he needs to pee, but he actually shits himself, which to me is instant karma. That's what you get for being on the troll side, Zach. Also, he said he threw away his underwear and went back to sitting at the table after shitting himself. Surely some of it would have gone through to the trousers, no? And now I feel physically sick. Brittany had a photo shoot to show the progress of her mummy makeover. At the photo shoot, Brittany, Lala, and Kristen discussed the divide in the group and how they're disappointed in Kristen isolating herself. The fact that Kristen and Nia can't get over the Janet of it all is so fucking annoying. I'd love for Nia and Danny to be booted off the valley, in the hopes that we can get the Kristen Doty we know and love back. The Kristen that doesn't have her whole head shoved up Nia's ass. Without Nia, I believe Kristen would make a conscious effort to move forward with Janet. At the end of the episode, Lala meets up with Kristen to talk. She mentions how Schwartz had told them that Kristen wasn't receptive to Janet's experience. Lala seemingly gets through to Kristen, and Kristen tells us that she feels empathy for any woman who's gone through something like that. Which I believe. It's just very much not coming across that way in relation to Janet, which makes me sad because they used to be friends at one point. It's true that Janet having trauma has nothing to do with why her and Kristen aren't friends. But Lala is asking you to separate the reason why you aren't friends, being the Danny stuff, with the trauma that Janet has been through and empathize with that. Now I'm feeling like Kristen doesn't actually get it. I don't know. The proof will be in the pudding, I guess. Anyway, moving on to episode 18. Everyone is getting into the Halloween spirit, which I love to see. We see Kristen putting up Halloween decorations outside, and Luke brings Kaya out. Kaya drops her dummy on the ground, and Kristen uses her mouth to clean the dummy, which is a technique I've never seen used before. I truly don't think that's going to make it any more hygienic. And also, probably doesn't matter anyway. Like, kids need germs. Who cares? I mean, obviously care. Like, that's not what I mean. You know what I mean. Kristen and Luke talk about their therapy session. And unsurprisingly, Luke was not happy with the end result because he felt defensive the whole time. Which makes me think that he felt like the therapist and Kristen were attacking him, which they weren't. They were asking you to express yourself and reflect on how you feel. He also doubles down on the fact that he hates pregnant Kristen, all while still claiming he wants a second child. He says he wants to get the second pregnancy out of the way so that they can put pregnant Kristen to rest. Lock her up in a coffin. The scariest thing to me is that he doesn't even seem to clock that what he said is fucked up. He's just like, what? Let's be done with her. Let's get rid of this bitch. Even though pregnant Kristen is part of Kristen. I'm also super perplexed at how Luke thinks this shit is all about him. Does he care whether Kristen was in a dark place? She was the pregnant one after all. There is no way in hell I would have a second child with a man who A, hated my pregnant self, B, had zero empathy for me while I was pregnant, C, has zero empathy for me postpartum, and D, seemingly only cares about his own fucking shit, i.e. fishing. I'm sorry if this makes me sound like a straight up cunt, but I could literally care less if Luke had never been in a darker place in his life. Get your shit together and take care of the woman in your life, being your fiance and your daughter. And again, I find myself pulled out of the darkness that resides in Luke by watching another adorable kid scene. Michelle playing with her daughter Isabella. Her daughter is so unbelievably cute. I've actually loved watching Michelle on this season of The Valley. I find her refreshing. And I've never noticed that about her in previous seasons. Maybe it's because she's single. I don't know. I love it. She's setting goals for herself to sell $50 million in real estate next year and buying herself a house, which we love to see. Jessie and Lacey go to a fertility clinic. Lacey tells us that she's been dealing with stage 4 endometriosis. My ignorant ass was over here not even knowing that there's different stages of endometriosis. She wants to freeze her eggs, even though Jessie is trying to get her to create embryos with them. What the fuck is it with these men literally trying to get their semen into everything? Speaking of semen, is anyone watching The Real Housewives of OC? I really need to express how weirded out I was when Vicky was telling her son to freeze his sperm. I can't be the only one that found it weird. Between that and Craig Conover wanting to do it, I'm fucking grossed out. Why the fuck are we freezing sperm at all? There are 80-year-old men having babies. Without doing any research whatsoever, I can confidently say that I'm sure even a 90-year-old man has had a baby. Probably with a 20-year-old, because why the fuck not? Why are we doing this? As humans, why are we doing such stupid shit? Honestly, there are enough assholes in this world that there is no requirement for the freezing of any semen. For the love of God. Anyway, Lacey tells Jessie to cool it and has to remind him that babies aren't dolls. Ugh. She's trying to keep her options open. I would say that's a good idea in terms of men as well. Good for you, Lacey. We arrive at the night of Brittany's Halloween party. At Kristen and Luke's place, Danny is terrorizing everyone with his Count Bucula impression. This man couldn't be more irritating. We see everyone arriving at Brittany's party, which looks very cool. I wish people celebrated Halloween to this extreme in New Zealand. I fucking love Halloween. Love a dress-up party. Speaking of spooky shit, Danny will not let his Count Bucula shtick go. He's annoying everyone. Michelle thinks most of all, his wife. I'm sure she's correct. Danny's foolishness knows no bounds. Zach, Lala, Michelle, Janet, and Brittany are discussing the fact that Kristen is saying Zach still hates Janet. And Zach tries to deflect by telling him that he shit his pants while they're all at Chili's. Which is hilarious and honestly a great tactic, but Janet's not having a bar of it. We've watched Danny enjoy all of the libations over the course of the night, and when Nia says to him, "You're drunk?" he's all, I'm not drunk. You're drunk. Slurring his words all over the place. Fucking idiot. Jason tries to make out with another woman dressed exactly like Janet. Probably because Janet refuses to suck his dick. Jasmine gets all the way turned up about a situation that doesn't even concern her. She confronts Michelle about Jesse's accusation that she's actually been dating the comedian in secret for 3 months. Which I'm not sure why anyone gives a flying fuck about. I get the concern for their daughter potentially getting attached to another person, but Michelle is saying that simply isn't the case. If the daughter met him in passing at an open home, I truly don't see the big deal. It's definitely not worth anyone having a screaming match about. Which is what ends up happening between Jasmine and Michelle's friend Natalie. We then see another screaming match in the kitchen between Kristen, Brittany, and Lala. Because Kristen is denying what she said about Zach at the photo shoot. I guess everyone is taking the word art that says release your inner demon a little too seriously. Danny tries to call Lala and Brittany dumb and dumber, but his drunk ass can't even get the words out. Really fucking rich coming from you, Danny. He can barely fucking stand. The funniest scene in this whole episode is watching Schwartz try to talk to the bartenders with his false fangs in. He's lisping all over the show and probably spitting in their faces. He's always trying to make friends with the bartender. Not that I can really judge. I've made friends with a bartender or two in my time. But I've never literally said to them, do you want me to come and do your job for you? That's insulting. Come on. Janet and Lala think now is a great time to hold Danny accountable for his drunken foolishness. When he's completely fucked up on tequila, Danny is completely insufferable, and I hope he gets annihilated at the reunion. The second funniest scene in this episode was watching Janet throw her drink at Danny's face, which he completely deserved. The only bummer about it is that he didn't melt into a puddle, although that would make him as cool as Alphaba. And we all know that's far from the case. Now Danny gets to be the victim and run around the party telling everyone that Janet threw a drink at him. Boo fucking who. Nia completely overreacts. She has no idea the context. They decide to grab their baby, which is kind of fucking crazy that they even brought a 4-month-old to this party, and leave. Good riddance. Finally, we find ourselves at the reunion part 1. We see everyone heading out to the stage and we're straight into it. I'm actually surprised we didn't get more behind the scenes footage of people arriving, saying hi and getting into glam, which is what we normally get. Anyway, Andy is saying his hellos to everyone. And when he gets to Luke, Andy says, I heard a little rumor that you have not watched any of the episodes from this past season. Which Luke confirms. This is where we as Bravo fans lose our fucking shit. I've heard so many people express how annoyed they were that West and Amanda didn't watch their last season. And rightfully so. You're not even doing your job correctly at this point. What the hell is the point of a reunion for events that are so far past you probably barely have any recollection of them? That's why you watch, to catch yourself up. And even though I think Luke isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, I would stand to say that he could probably learn a thing or two from watching the way that he acted over this past season. Like a fucking dick. Perhaps that's giving him too much credit though, because here he is proving yet again that he will not be taking any accountability. I'm also confused because he's on the after show discussing shit. Do they not have to watch the episodes for the after show? I seriously hope the people that don't watch back are being paid less. Anywho, we learned that Zach can't bring himself to buy a regular refrigerator after living that Monster Energy fridge life. Now I'm wondering how Zach is keeping anything cold in his apartment. Does he not buy meat? Vegetables? Especially living in the valley, surely you need a cold drink to cool yourself down from time to time. It's kind of reminded me of a lady that I saw on Come Dine With Me once, who didn't have a refrigerator. She just kept all of her perishables in a cupboard off of her kitchen. She lived in a place so cold, she needed no fridge, which is wild. Which is actually the opposite of Zach's situation. Anyway, Andy says hello to Danny and asks him how he's feeling. He says, it's a great day to have a great day. Typical Danny. He looks like he's about to pull a Zach and Chili's and shit himself. He did say that he had watched the season back though, so I commend him for that at least, if nothing else. He said he found some of the things embarrassing and it was a hard watch. Yeah, for all of us. We get to talking babies, and Danny and Nia are discussing the vasectomy of it all. Apparently, you need to send a sample to the doctor to check whether the procedure has worked, which they haven't done. Nia says that she had a scare where she was 2 weeks late for her period. To which I'm like, bitch, get that sample mailed off. What the fuck? Jasmine is all of us when she hears this news. She says, if I have to hear this motherfucker say 6 under 6, implying that she would lose her mind. I'm right there along with her. Andy cannot let go of Luke being the potential donor for baby Sosa. That baby is way too damn cute to be related to Luke. What are we doing here? Anyway, Lala shuts it down by saying the timing is way off because Luke donated in 2013 or something. Of course, we get the inevitable Jax conversation. We find out that Brittany has primary custody of Cruz, which I love for her. But she's still trying to divorce that demon. And we find out why Jax is holding up the divorce process. Because Brittany is still paying towards his $1.2 million tax debt. Because she's legally obligated to until he divorces her. Jesse says he no longer has a relationship with Jax. Because Jax came at him about an interview that he did for an addiction charity. Even though he didn't even watch the interview. Which is very fucking Jax of him. He has also tried to reach out to Danny, even though he has said multiple times that he wants to take Danny down. Basically, he's trying to weasel his way back onto the show. Brittany tells us that Jax has talked shit about everyone on the show, coming as a surprise to literally no one. Even Scheana, Schwartz's girlfriend. Like, what? Do they even know each other? I don't know. He's still playing the Frank Drummond game with all of his silly little burner accounts. What an idiot. What an idiot. We move from one demon to the next. Aaron with the crazy eyes. I have to say, I actually thought his name was Erin, as in E-R-I-N. This is another, accent thing. So, come to find out his name is Aaron. Anyway, Andy is like, did he really break up with you because you weren't athletic? Michelle says, it was a combination of things, but he said, you look amazing now, but 10 years from now, you might not look like that. Aaron? If there's anyone that you've ever met in your life that looks exactly the same 10 years on, can you please give me their fucking details? I would love to get in touch with them and ask where the Fountain of Youth is located. Thank you. It really tickles me that people think we'll be seeing Dr. Dre on The Valley next season. I'm not sure if they're being serious, but he seems like a pretty private person who keeps a low profile. I would be shocked if I saw him in a testimonial on The Valley. Anyway, we move on to talking about Brandon, Brittany's ex. Andy asks Brittany if she thinks her picker is off. And she's like, duh, Andy, you think? Thank God she kicked that man to the curb. But we find out, not before giving him 10 grand. Someone yells out, I thought it was just $50. And honestly, I thought the same. And I thought $50 was too much. Jesus, rein it in, Brittany. You don't need to be with someone who's asking you to give them that kind of money. Luckily, she tells us that she's seeing a narcissist abuse coach. Which, the wording of the title confuses me. But I assume they're going to steer her clear of douchebags? I hope. Lacey joins the gang on the couches. And it's pretty evident Michelle, Jesse, and Lacey have gone 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I'm kind of exhausted by this whole situation. I was actually looking forward to seeing Jesse and Michelle move forward as friends. I truly hope we don't have to watch them fight and argue all of next season. Lacey is correct. They will never see eye to eye. Andy says, I got the impression you're all getting along. And I have to say that's the impression I got as well. I think it's important to remember that the times that Lacey is referring to when she's talking about Michelle being so upset, Michelle had obviously recently split up with her husband and was dealing with her mother dying. Can we give the woman some grace, please? Jesse claims to be an expert on everything Michelle because he's known her for 12 years. I do feel you can know someone for 12 years and not actually know every aspect of that person. You could probably know someone a lifetime and not know every detail, right? Lala finally tells us what went down with her and Scheana. She explains that Scheana told her that Jenna, who we saw a few times last season, was going in on her. So Lala went to Jenna and said, Sheena's got a lot going on. She just found out that Brock cheated on her while she was pregnant. So can you please lay off? This was before Scheana had released her book, along with all the details of the cheating. Jenna took the information public. So I guess that the information came out prior to her book being released, which is what upset Scheana. I think that's what happened anyway. Lala is pretty cut up about the situation. And this information only solidifies my thoughts that Scheana needs to be on the next season of The Valley. We need some resolution here, Andy. We're discussing Kristen and Janet being mortal enemies. Kristen said at BravoCon that she thinks the next couple that will break up are going to be Janet and Jason. Kristen says that she was just trying to answer the question and that she doesn't actually think that, which I don't really believe. We've gone through this whole season and I'm still unclear why Kristen is so hateful towards Janet. Kristen has said things like she's mean and she can't trust Janet, but I've yet to understand the actual crux of the issue. Zach and Kristen are bitching about Janet serving flattery and gift giving. I'm seriously fucking confused. She's just trying to be nice in order to be friends again. God forbid she pay you a compliment and give you a gift for some milestone in your life. Are they being serious? You're the ones who look like assholes for saying shit like that. Andy wants to know where Kristen's hatred for Janet comes from. Kristen says it's not hate, it's disdain. To me, hate and disdain are pretty interchangeable. Although Googling the definition of disdain, Google says it stems from a feeling of superiority, treating someone or something as unworthy of your respect, which does seem pretty on point. Kristen feels like she's better than Janet. Kind of gross, even though they've just had a whole conversation about how people forgave Kristen for the mistakes she made, yet she can't afford Janet that same forgiveness. Seems like double standards to me. Janet asked for an example of what specifically she's done to Zach, and we get nothing. Not one example. Andy makes them hug it out. We end part 1 with Brittany and Zach getting into their disagreements over the season. Zach says we will always be soul sisters, no matter what. And just when I think the situation is resolved, they get back into it. So, to be continued, I guess. I mean, yeah, because there's 2 more parts. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it for this week. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.